Good morning, everyone. Hi, this is Grace Stephen, and welcome to Mornings with Grace. Each time I do this, I start out with saying how excited I am. But once again, I am excited that I have a great interview for you today with my friend Robbie Samuels. He's an author and a speaker, and he is one amazing young man. He's recently started running, and I've asked him a lot about how he started and how he's become, I'll use the term, addicted to it. But it's really a lesson in getting unstuck and a lesson on setting goals. So I think you'll find it really, really interesting and fits right in with a lot of the themes of Mornings with Grace. You may be wondering what's behind me right now, but that is the castle at the Magic Kingdom in Disney World. I'm recording this and going live right now on Friday morning, November 8th. 1 week ago, I was in Disney World and spent 3 days park hopping, and it was pretty fabulous. And as you know, I am sharing my Where in the World is Grace Stevens. So I have a little travelog of Disney World that I'm going to share with you in a moment, and then we'll kind of move on and talk a little bit with Robbie Stevens. So here is a little travelog. Let's see if I can find it. Goodness gracious. Camera source. Here we go.
Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas.
I bet you can tell that I had a great time in Disney World. I highly recommend you go. It's not just for kids. On one of the days, I think a week ago today, Friday, my friend and I, we walked close to 11 miles as we park hopped, but it was fabulous. We were there from 7 in the morning until about 10:30 at night after the fireworks. I thinking that I may go back again. It was great. The new Avatar ride, Flight of Passage, is a 3D virtual reality ride. One of the best rides I've ever been on. I highly recommend it. Moving on to our guest today, Robbie Samuels. One thing I do want to point out is that Robbie, as the interview goes on, will be offering a free gift. The downloaded URL will be above his head as we share the screen. So I am going to move on to the interview with Robbie Samuels. I'll be back right afterwards. Here we go. Hey everyone, I'd love to introduce you to my friend Robbie Samuels. I met Robbie a few years ago at National Speakers Association meetings. It was amazing. He was young, something that I have a tough time remembering about those days when I was young. But he came in fresh, getting to be a speaker, and within months, he was a force of nature. He had just jumped in, volunteered, and has been one of the most active members and doing things, not only in the local chapter of National Speakers Association, but is known far and wide now for the work he's done. I was talking to him the other day, and he said, I think you said the first year that you were involved, you were doing 30 talks a year or more. And that's wonderful. It's a little bit crazy. I know, and I know that you're an outgoing extrovert, but even at that seems like so much to do. But one of the things that I've learned from talking to Robbie and understand Robbie a little bit, he is so willing to undertake something new. He has many, there might be more manys to come, different identities. And he has been, in a career, an event manager. He's been involved with social justice, something that's dear to his heart, dear to my heart. He does business coaching. One of his main topics is to help people in associations with strategic networking, and help me if I get this right or wrong, to make and keep lifelong relationships.
Sure, yeah.
That's it. He is a work-at-home dad with 2 young boys, 2 and 4. And just for the people out there, these are the pictures. Robbie, you can't see them right now, but they're up there next to your picture of 2 young boys. So I think you're partial to vests, or they're partial to vests.
It was a special occasion.
I love it. Yeah. I remember years ago with my kids, I sew, and we all had matching outfits, the 5 of us. It was amazing. We'd never wore them again after that special occasion. You're a speaker, and we're recording this early in November, and in 2 weeks you're going to be speaking at TEDx Beacon Street. So
That's right.
That is a huge accomplishment. And you have many identities, some of which I bet you planned, and I suspect some of which you don't plan. So welcome to Mornings with Grace.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah. So with all of these identities, as you know, the idea of Mornings with Grace, one of the themes is to help people get unstuck. And to take the next first steps. And I was reading one of the little notes that you put out this morning, and it was really in line with planning, getting unstuck, setting goals. And I'm just wondering if you're willing to share a little bit about your life and these identities, of how planned they were, and perhaps how stuck you may have been at times, and what that was like for you, and how you managed to get yourself unstuck into the next steps. And just before we get there, what I failed to mention is it's only over the last few months you've become a runner, and we'll get there. But I'd like to hear a little bit about your story.
Sure, absolutely. So I actually was working in nonprofits throughout my career, and I was organizing about 25 fundraising events a year. Did that for a decade. I worked for GLAAD, Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders, which has been rebranded GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders since I left. And about 5 years before leaving, I started speaking on the side. I had this side hustle, and it was taking off, and started to use my vacation time to go do talks in Western Massachusetts or DC, etc. And left at the end of 2014 with the idea that I wanted to continue to speak about strategic and inclusive networking, also known as relationship building, but I had to make a shift with who I wanted to speak to. And so I spent some time trying to sort that out. I launched a podcast. I was about to be a parent. So I had a year being home, working, figuring out this business thing before I had my first child. And the first shift for me was actually that podcast, making a commitment to doing that and deciding that I would do it for a minimum of 2 years. I'm now at close to 3.5 years. I almost gave it up at 2 years, and I partly caution people that it's good to have a 2-year goal because it needs to get out of the gate at least for 2 years to start to see how it works and to see how it will benefit you. Don't give up all that progress and start with something new. I almost did that. Keep going, keep investing, and building off of that success. So my book came out a year later. So that's a little over 2 years ago. My book is called Croissants versus Bagels: Strategic, Effective, and Inclusive Networking at Conferences. And, I thought that from there you would, dive deeper into speaking, but I actually took a little detour, decided to develop a coaching program because I didn't have anything to sell or offer other than speaking, and I wanted to have a more diverse revenue streams. I like coaching. I was sort of doing a happenstance. So making a commitment to building that, developing that, and now I'm actually about to embark on being an in-house, in-house coach for entrepreneurs, part-time, where I'm no longer having to recruit and think about the clients and the cohorts, but I'm able to still develop and share my expertise. And now my focus for speaking is with associations, as you mentioned, and I really want to help associations inspire lifelong membership by creating more welcoming and inclusive first-timer experiences. So that's kind of my sweet spot, is helping get people from years 1 to year 3. And yes, most recently, I started running, and only very, very recently would I call myself even a runner.
So let's hold off on the running for a second, Robbie. So, what I would like to go back is, so this commitment that you've talked about making a commitment multiple times already in this little conversation of feeling that you weren't making progress, almost gave up, recommitted again, and said, keep going. Was this a full-time effort for you, part-time effort? And what did this commitment look like? And what did you have to overcome in order to recommit to yourself?
So the podcast is, now I have support. So the first year I did all of it except for the audio editing. And so I wouldn't say it was full-time, but it definitely took a lot more of my time. 2 years in, it was successful. It was doing well. It was meeting a need, but I had another idea for a different show that I had been noodling on for 2 years and held off exploring. And I allowed myself to explore it for a few months, got really excited to the point where I actually registered the name of the show as a trademark. I don't have trademarks for the rest of my stuff, but I decided it was that. So I was very serious about it. But here's the visual that I got from a business coach. This is why I believe we all need coaches. It's like I was at a diving board and there were 20 rungs up the ladder, and I had climbed 10 of the rungs, and I was looking up at my destination thinking, oh my gosh, it's still quite a ways to go. When I get there, I'm at the top. Am I going to know what to do? Oh my gosh, what if I completely belly flop and make a fool of myself? And as I'm thinking all of those thoughts, those negative self-talk, I look down and I notice that there are people gathering at the base of another ladder. And they seem to be a little unsure of what to do and how to get to even the second or third rung. And I know that. I'm thinking I could just climb down and go over there and help those people get to rung 10. That would be very fulfilling. Except I would never get past rung 10 myself if I'd keep diverting my attention to new endeavors. So the recommitment was, this is a good show, but what would happen if I stuck with it? And the last year and a half, I think the show has been so much better because I'm really comfortable as a host. I actually lost my list of questions during my move, and I haven't had them in 7 months, but I've been interviewing left and right, and it's wonderful. It's a great way to connect with people. I've met so many more interesting people. I've been able to attract really quality guests. And, part of it's when you have had a show that's nearly 200 episodes, that's a very small number of shows that can say that. So if I'd started over, I'd be back at episode, 20. And now I'm at, closing in on 200. That's a significant difference. So I think, committing initially meant doing a weekly show. My show is 50 weeks a year. I take off Christmas and New Year's. But it's comes out every Tuesday. And you alluded to something you read this morning by me. That's my weekly email. That comes out every Tuesday. And actually the text of that email is the intro that I read for my podcast. So I share a little story. It has a business lesson, and then there's a challenge for the readers or listeners to take. So committing to doing that. I do think that consistency and quality are two of the things we have to be aiming for all the time to really achieve success.
Thank you for sharing that. And as you may know, this is episode 7 for me of Mornings with Grace. So you're helping me get to rung number 7 on the ladder. I did 3 previews to get comfortable with the technology. If you ask me, do I know what I'm doing? I am clueless right now here. And I just trust myself. I don't really have a script. I'm just basically sitting, I think I can talk to people and I think I can share. And one of the most favorite books that I have is Richard Bach's Illusions. And there's a little sub-book called The Messiah's Handbook. And one of the lessons in that is you teach best what you need to learn. And now with you, guest number 7, every guest I have, I am learning so much from each of my guests in different ways, in different things, on life, on people, and I am getting people who I believe, I think people everywhere and every one of us have overcome some struggles in our lives. And the most important thing is when we get to listen to or see people that have overcome struggles, we never know when one thing we may hear may inspire us. And I know what you're saying now about making the commitment and keep going is the inspiration I need, because after each show, I wonder, am I going to do it again? Is it going to be, what's going to be next? I'm not yet on a regular day of the week. There are some weeks I don't do it. I reach out and find different people. And I know, and like you with many identities, I've always joked that I live in 6 different worlds simultaneously. And the good part is I can reach out to people in these 6 different worlds. And it kind of amazes me that I may not have deep connections, but I have very wide connections. And people have been saying yes to me, and I'm just pinching myself on that. But
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's a really any kind of interview show that people do, whether it's this live format or a podcast. It's such a fresh development for the host. It really is, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think we only stick to things that does fulfill us on a personal level. We can't just do things for other people. And so even if someone else were to tell you that this is the best thing to do for a career, and you were like, okay, fine. If you didn't feel personally fulfilled going through all the steps, then you wouldn't stick to it. So finding like what helps you and nurtures you, I think keeps you going. So like the podcast is not a direct moneymaker for me.
Right.
It does increase my credibility. It does introduce me to amazing people and help me broaden my reach in the world. It does help me have a different kind of impact. It keeps me steady with creating content. So there's a lot of things that it does. And there are clients that have come through, coaching and speaking clients, because they heard me first on a podcast. And it's a very intimate experience to be a podcast listener and to have the host in your head. So those relationships take off very quickly because they feel like they know and trust me. And now it's a matter of us actually getting to know each other as people, as opposed to just being an audience member and a host. So I would never want to give it up, because I feel like it's just such a fulfilling on a personal level, but it also sort of gives some structure to, as a speaker, we don't know where we're going to be in a week, but I know every single week this thing's going to happen. And that to me has been really, really rewarding.
Right. When I go out, and I think I do more trainings than I do speakings on different subjects. And, the last training I did, which was the first time I've done what I call a broad diversity training, I went in saying I'm going to learn from the people there. And, from my own training as a counselor, I've learned that in a lot of the training, I can just listen to people. I don't necessarily have to have any answers. And that is such a different piece that thinks I'm responsible than thinking that I'm responsible for putting things out. Is I'm responsible for facilitating lots of discussions and seeing where people are taking it. And I'm part of the audience when that happens too. So I'm like a traffic cop. And I have found that I have joy and passion when that happens. But I struggle sometimes, and I'm not looking for help right now. That's a separate coaching thing, of the idea of, how do you market facilitation on things? But that will be another topic.
Sure.
At some point. So, going back to the idea of sticking to things is one side of being stuck or getting unstuck. So I'd love to jump into how did the whole idea of running come into your life, which wasn't there for the last 100 years or so. So, what happened? Where did it come from? How did it get there?
Oh, it's funny to look at things that are happening in your personal life and be able to extrapolate business lessons from it. I actually every week look for those kinds of stories. And the reason that I have been running is because I've been sharing it. I've been sharing it in my weekly emails. I've been sharing it online because I know that I needed some external accountability. So the way it got started was that my wife is 5 years younger than me. And so 5 years ago, I had turned 40. And she started leaving articles in the bathroom open on magazines on the counter. And it was articles about people who start running in their 40s or 50s, families that run together, and just those kinds of things. And, it was causing anxiety. I mean, I finally had to tell her, it's not happening. It's just not going to happen. Like, the timed mile, the U.S. presidential required time mile in high school brings back really negative memories. Like,
subgroup.
Never gonna do it. So, I mean, I joke that my plan of being chased was to play dead. I didn't have a plan to run away. I had a plan to lay down and pretend I was dead. So, I don't know. I started to really pay attention to my fitness as I had children. I had been different levels of fitness in the last 10 years, but in the last 5, I particularly made an effort because I want to be there for them for a very long time and be able to really engage with them. So they were sort of the inspiration. So, I finally last spring committed to going to the gym and doing the elliptical 3 times a week. And I did. I was very, very good about, for the first time, sticking to that plan. And I did that for a few months. Now, my wife turned 40 this year in August. So in like June, she started a Couch to 5K program. And that's where you run and walk in different lengths until you finally can run, right? So you run, walk, run, walk. So she was starting to explore that while I was doing my 3 days a week at the elliptical. Now, I will say, while I was doing the elliptical, I was not paying attention to how fast I was going, other than I had sort of a minimum speed, and I wasn't worried about how far I was going or anything like that. The metrics really were very simplistic. I did 30 minutes, done. She starts coming home and telling me that she had run X many miles. So I go and I look at what I'm able to do, and I start following that. I start going faster and faster. So that was the first thing, is I like quadrupled my speed. It was amazing. Like, I couldn't believe what I was able to do.
So this was competitive in your mind.
Oh yeah, I was like, what can I do? You know, and it was like fascinating, but it's also sort of a, wow, my body is in better shape. Like, I can do this. This is very sort of interesting, like a science experiment, kind of curious. So this goes on for a little bit, and we're in July, we're heading away for a week, and my wife says, while we're gone, why don't you come for a run with me? You have great lung capacity because you've been doing this gym thing for months. She's like, I'm still running and walking in my routine, you know, why not? And I kind of ran out of excuses because I know and love and trust her. I will also mention that as we were getting engaged, we went rock climbing at an indoor rock climbing gym. I don't like moving heights. I don't mind standing on a roof if I'm by myself, but I don't want other people up there with me. And I hate the ladder that gets you there. So for her to belay me while I was up there was that's a true trust exercise.
Yes.
I trust her implicitly. And I knew that she wouldn't make me go further or faster or anything that I couldn't handle. But I kind of felt ready to try this out. And I don't know that I would have on my own. So we ran, you know, did a walk and run. 8 minutes into 10, we had a 10-minute run. 8 minutes in, I was like, I can't do this. But I finished, did the last 2 minutes. We walked for 5 minutes. I did another 10 minutes. Again, got to the 8-minute mark and was like, I don't know if I can do this. Finished it. I was sore for 4 days because the difference between running on the elliptical, which is no effort on your body, and pounding pavement, and I didn't have great shoes. Well, on the 4th day, we went running again. This is still while we were away on our vacation. And a week later, we were away, and she ran on a Saturday morning, and I said, you know, maybe I'll get up and run on Sunday. So she stayed in our room with the kids, and I took off. And my whole goal, honestly, wasn't about how fast I went or anything. I wanted to know if I could run for 30 minutes without stopping. Now, there were points, Grace, where I was running slow to the point of backwards. But I didn't stop. I mean, I just kept going. So I ended up doing 1.88 miles in 35 minutes, which is very, very slow. But I did it. Right. And I went running with her a couple more times, with her and her friend. And I pretty quickly got to 3 miles, not fast, but I was wearing the wrong shoes. So I hurt myself. My big fear of running was that I would hurt myself. And I could have used it as an excuse. That could have been like the end of the whole experiment. But I, again, felt really committed to this as a practice. Made my wife get good shoes. We both went and got good shoes. Because she, at that point, had been running for a few months. Again, not in great shoes. And we were about 2 weeks away from a 5K that she'd been training for 12 weeks. I guess 10 weeks at that point. And I said, you know, I'm going to do that race with you. And she was both, wow, that's amazing, and wait a second. You've been doing this for like how long, and you're going to just jump in? But I was like, I'm just going to commit, because if I commit, I'll do the work. And so I actually pushed our kids in a double stroller from our first 5K, which I'd never done during our training runs. She always did that. But I couldn't run that fast because I had hurt my leg. But my not very fast was still a 13 and change mile, which compared to that first day out was very fast. And I finished it. And then I said, I want to do one a month for the rest of the year. And so that we did one in August, We did one in September. We did one in October. October and September is interesting because I didn't have anyone to push. I was healed from the injury, and the second one was actually really hilly, but my pace was 5 seconds faster. So even though it was a really challenging course, my pace was faster than when I had been a month earlier. And then I signed up for one. I have one coming up this weekend on the November 10th, and I just finalized which one I'm going to do in December. And so I'm out there in the morning. I've got winter cap on and gloves, and I've got all the gear and my fancy shoes, and I just kind of go. And I've now twice run 4 miles, just out for a run, and it's getting to the point where I can say it's enjoyable. I still feel weird calling myself a runner, but I have committed to running 10 miles a week. And I ran 42 miles in October and 38 in September. So I think I'll get that 10 miles a week. And it's a matter now of doing it in like fewer days. To get to that before was 5 or 6 days of running 1 or 2 miles at a time to get to 10. And now I'm doing like 2.5 to 4. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a thing that you commit to and set different goals for. So these 5Ks every month have been little goalposts. They're official challenges, keeps me doing the training. And it's weird to think that my kids will always know me as an author because, I published the book in 2017, and they're so little they won't know me not being an author. And then they also will always know me hopefully as a person that gets up and go out for a run a few days a week. This is remarkable to me. Like, those are not identities I had planned for. Those are not identities that I knew I wanted my whole life. Those were opportunities that were given to me that I said yes to.
I get it. I so get these identities that pop in, and suddenly we're doing them, and then can we claim the label?
Yeah.
How do we do that? So, I've done 3 books. Am I an author? Am I a writer? Or am I just somebody that does that? I don't exactly know what that label means, and how I can claim it there. But I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
As you shared that with us, what I find absolutely powerful as Robbie the role model, your belief in commitment and goals. Those are the 2 things that keep coming back through this entire discussion. And I'm wondering, where did you learn the value, the power of setting goals and making commitments? Because I don't have the sense that everybody can do that. Or does try to do that. And certainly that might be your coaching business, but the idea is what can you or are willing to share with viewers here that talks about the value, the strength of it, and when we get stuck and the idea of, well, I really can't, and how do you weigh all that? And how do you break your way through it and hold that?
So I think I started to fully appreciate this when I left my career, which was very deadline driven, and had a lot of those goals not set by me, but externally set. And I was working very well in that environment, and then found myself unmoored because as a new business owner, there was no one telling me what to do every day. And there were days that I didn't know whether I'd accomplished anything that was going to move me forward in a momentum. And there were weeks that I wondered that initially, which is why I sort of finally landed on the idea of a podcast 6 months into that, and then was like, okay. And I was also about to be a parent, so I sort of had 2 things I worked on every day: my podcast and learning about parenting. So those were 2 important goals. And then subsequently, I've been setting quarterly goals. So every quarter, I set 1 or 2 major goals and 1 or 2 minor goals. And the minor goals support goals later on often. Or sometimes they're a one-off thing. So an example might be if I wanted to update my website, which is something I'd like to do in 2020, I don't have that as a January resolution. I have in, one quarter taking new photos. In another quarter, it's like revamping the text. In another quarter, it's thinking about and working with someone around branding. And then in another quarter, it's like hiring a designer and bringing it all together so that I can take something that feels like big and could just go on forever and know I'm making progress towards that bigger
Little
goal.
steps at a time, one
Right.
step at a time. Yep.
Oh, without that, like the TEDx is a good example. If I say I want to do the TEDx as my 2019 goal, but then I just sort of happenstance did things, I could get to the end of the year not having met that goal and then wonder, well, is this even the right goal? Maybe I shouldn't bother. But the thing is, like, if I say in Q1, I'm going to create the right text that I'm going to pitch and I'm going to refine it. I'm going to work with people who know what they're doing. And on Q2, I'm going to do all this research for like where and when and how I might be able to submit things and get all that clarity. And by Q3, I will have submitted X number. Like just that kind of effort made this generalized 2019 goal a reality for me because I knew I was making progress towards that goal. And if I hadn't achieved it by the end of 2019, I would know where I needed to apply more effort, as opposed to just generally thinking, well, I don't know whether this is worth it or what do I have to fix. And if you really commit for 12 weeks to a piece of it and it doesn't work, that actually teaches you something that you can then use to figure it out forward. If you generally make a plan for 12 months, you don't learn anything when it doesn't happen. You just kind of, I don't know, maybe it was the wrong goal.
Right.
And it might have been, but you really don't know. You haven't learned anything about it. So it's really been in the last 5 years, the growth of my business, the fact that like the podcast and then a year later, the book and then a coaching program and now the TEDx, right? These are all important goalposts for being recognized as an expert, having authority in a space. And if I tried to move them all forward at once, I wouldn't have been able to. Like, you can't do well all the things at once. So I think of it as sort of stacking your successes, that both within a year, each quarter, but also within a 5-year period, and it wasn't like I had a 5-year plan that included a TEDx. As I mentioned in my email that came out this morning, it was a coach that finally said to me, hey, you got all this other stuff. You really need to be writing for Harvard Business Review. You really need to be doing a TEDx. And so all year, I made connections now. I have an editor at Harvard Business Review. I have an article that's waiting to be published. I've got the TEDx coming up this month. So like, I wouldn't have known 4 years ago to set those goals. So I hired a coach to help me dream the kind of vision that I was still having trouble identifying.
I love that. I so love that. Being older now, I keep wondering what dreams I've been successful and lived through and what new dreams are still left for me at this point, and also wondering what my energy level is to try to make those come true. But I think dreaming is very, very important in our lives, and I have actually started in my journal today doing these stages of the evolution of dreams, of going from the impossible dream to living the dream to making new dreams. So there'll be something that I'm starting to put together in that, and because I think it's so important. But that's great. So here at Mornings with Grace, one of the other themes is magic. And when I talk about magic as people's special qualities, not their trick. And the questions that I love to ask my guests is, what is your magic? What is your special quality? How does it appear? And what are the unintended solutions with people when your magic appears for them? So I'd love to kind of hit you with that. What do you think
Sure.
your magic is?
Well, I think my superpower, my magic is my ability to convene people and make the people all feel welcomed and like they belong. I think it's a powerful enough to just be able to bring people into a room, but I think what really I'm able to add on is the thoughtfulness that helps people really show up and be present and engage with each other. And so I think the way this helps other people, and this is why I want to work with associations, because I have a background with events. I love going to conferences, but so many of them sort of miss the mark on this. And people that first year are very overwhelmed, drinking from the fire hose, feeling like, it's hard that first year at a conference. Most people know going in it's going to be like that. I think the harder year is actually year 2, when you think it's going to be so much better and easier, and it's only better and easier by small increments.
Right.
And so I want to help really unpack that and help figure out how do you get people to convene. That they're already doing, right? They've done the work of having great content, but now it's like, how do you layer on the power of possible connections so that the people coming feel like they find their people, they have found meaning and importance in this space, and it's a space they never want to skip. They want to be lifelong members because it's been so valuable. Right. So for me, it's like I see it intuitively, the value of things through the eyes of relationship building and relationship building strategies, but a lot of people miss that, and so when they go, they sort of logistically get there, but they haven't really been able to follow through with any intentions.
They haven't committed or set their goals, which is what is the nature of Robbie.
Yeah.
That is fabulous. So do you have anything else you might want to add to our viewers here on why Run Robbie Run is so important for your life?
Well, I wanted to say that I wanted to offer a gift
to
everyone watching, which is 10 tips for conference connections. It's a 3 pages of my 10 tips. It's a 3-page PDF. It's really the kind of thing you could open on your phone and skim through before heading into your next event. Yep. I want everyone to have the ability that I'm describing to show up and be really present. And so it's going to be available at robbiesamuels.com/mornings. So you can go and check that out, and I hope you enjoy it.
And your URL is above your talking head on the video, so people will get that. So remember to take that URL and add /mornings, and you'll be able to get the 10 tips from Robbie. So Robbie, hang on the line. I'm going to thank you so much. I'll talk to you in a second, but I'm going to finish up this segment. So thank you so much for joining us on Mornings with Grace.
Thank you.
Thanks. That was fabulous. Robbie, don't forget to go to Robbie's website, robbiesamuels.com/morning, and download your 10 tips on how to be seen, how to be there in a conference and meet people. I love Robbie's superpower, his magic of being able to convene people, make people feel welcome. I have been in groups where he has done that. I totally understand his superpower, and I marvel at it. It's not something that I have, but that's really, really great. So thank you for joining us on Mornings with Grace today. I am going to do, before I do the standard finish of It's Never Too Late, I'm going to add in a few more fireworks from Epcot and let the sky explode for you. So thank you for joining us. Hang on 1 second. Here we go.
You're staring out your window again. You're thinking about how careless you have been with the hearts and minds of others and the mother you let down. But what you need to know is that forgiveness abounds. It's never too late, never too late, never too late for love. It's never too late, never too late, no, never too late for love. And though you might believe you've been wandering too far, it's never too late for love.